गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबको दोबारा स्वागत है। वणकम, जय हिंद एंड प्रणाम। आज हम ईरान के बारे में जानकारी हासिल करेंगे। ईरान, द शैडोई पावर, जो छुपा रुस्तुम इस इलाके का, और जो छुपा रुस्तुम है ईरान, इराक, ईरान और सॉरी नॉट ईरान, जो छुपा रुस्तुम है आपका इजराइल और हमास वॉर में, राइट। और इसके बारे में बात करने के लिए हमारे पुराने दोस्त कर्नल राजीव अग्रवाल हैं। गुड इवनिंग राजीव एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट वंस अगेन। लॉन्ग टाइम वी हैव बीन प्लानिंग फॉर दिस। बहुत दिन के बाद हो पाया ये।
Thank you, sir. Always nice to be with you, sir.
Oh, that is very nice. So let us take off. Let's not waste time. What's special of Iran? How does it? What is this country which is so different from others? Just give us a background, and then we'll take on the rest of the thing. बाकी देखेंगे क्या है क्या.
So,
Yeah.
Iran is, very unique and important in its own way, and very important in the region where it is located geographically. And you've shown the map at the first, start of the show. It is the largest country in the Persian Gulf, north of the Persian Gulf, and it controls the entire narrative which happens in the Persian Gulf north of it. It is also a very country which has, had a very rich and deep history. It was the Persian Empire, and unlike some of the countries which are south of the Persian Gulf, it has got a civilizational heritage which runs into thousands of years. And what is interesting, and maybe people don't often talk about it, is that pre-independence, when India and Pakistan were British India, Iran was sharing boundaries with the British India. So it was our immediate neighbor, where we had about 700 kilometers of shared boundary with Iran. Coming of Pakistan, obviously, Iran has become an extended neighbor. Iran also is important from an Indian standpoint, because with Pakistan obstructing our access to the Afghanistan region and the Central Asian republics, Iran becomes the shortest and safest route through which India has access to the countries of Afghanistan and Central Asian region. And therefore, the projects and the collaboration that Iran and India have in Chabahar port, etc., they become very important. So, and the rivalry which has been on for 30, 40 years since the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty, and the theological democracy came about in Iran. So thereafter, the strongest and bitter rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran have pitted the two neighbors across the Persian Gulf against each other, which have set and controlled the narrative for the entire West Asian region for the last 3 decades. Obviously, this has changed in this year, but things have to still pan out how it works out.
ईरान जो है ना, यहाँ इस इलाके में वो हावी होना चाहता है. इट वांट्स टू बिकम अ रीजनल पावर. इट वांट्स टू बिकम अ लीडर ऑफ द मुस्लिम वर्ल्ड, and it has a bitter rivalry with Saudi Arabia and all that. Could you just give a little word on that, and then we will see. Of course, उसके साथ साथ it also wants to become a nuclear power, and उसके भी काफी problems हैं. उसके ऊपर sanctions भी हैं अमेरिका का. तो ये दोनों चीज के ऊपर थोड़ा बताइए राइट सबके लिए.
So, if we know about the West Asian region, we know that Saudi Arabia has the two most, holy sites of the Muslims, the Mecca and Medina, and it is a Sunni leader of the Sunni world. So the leader of the Muslim world, leader in the region of the West Asia, and both by the power that it exerts as well as the sites, the holy site that it has. Saudi Arabia claims that it is the leader of the Muslim world. On the other hand, Iran, being an ancient civilization, the only major country which is a Shia, which is the other sect of Muslim, having Iran being the Shia power, it exerts its rights to be the supreme regional power, and exerts the right that it has equal, if not more say. It should have equal, if not more say in the affairs of the West Asian region. However, ever since the Iranian Revolution and thereafter, the Western sanctions have impeded and restricted Iran in most of its endeavors. And thereafter, like you mentioned, the nuclear program, which came under a lot of scrutiny, and sanctions further impeded Iran's outreach into the region. But Iran has, found ways and means to see that its influence does not wane away in any manner. In fact, in last 2 decades, ever since the Gulf War of 2003 in Iraq, Iran has only extended its influence, and has been an irritant, if I can say, in most of the issues that have plagued the West Asian region. And so this Saudi Arabia and Iran, they have been vying for a regional leadership position for long, and both have their own claims and logic, and that is why it has been going on for so long.
Fine. तो ये हो गया ये background about Iran, Saudi Arabia, इनका nuclear वगैरह. What is the actual status of their nuclear, weapon system or program and all that? Because that is always a bit hazy.
So,
So have they operationalized something or all that? What's happening on that?
So Iran nuclear program has had a very interesting history. It was started in the 1950s under before the Iranian Revolution took off under the Shah's regime as Atoms for Peace program by USA. And
USA, yeah.
thereafter it progressed. Germany also volunteered to make one of its nuclear plants, Bushehr nuclear plant. But after the revolution, everything fell away, and it was under some sort of a suspension till the time it could be revived in 1990s when Russia decided to take up the Bushehr nuclear plant and make it for Iran. And then things progressed. Iran was a signatory to the NPT, Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, and it had, agreed and adhered to the protocols by the IAEA. And interestingly, in 2003, it also agreed to adhere or extend additional protocols which are not mandated as per the treaty, but just as a vote of confidence, it extended those protocols to IAEA for additional protocols, which meant they had the inspectors had additional access to the nuclear program, etc. But coming to what has happened in the past, it was in 2009 when undisclosed site was discovered just before the UN Assembly session in September 2009. In the a site which is called Fordo, which is deep into the mountains in Iran, and that set the ball rolling for the current nuclear weapons program, or suspected weapons program, as we call it. And it went on and on till 2015 when the Iran nuclear deal was finally signed. It was signed and negotiated between the P5, the P5 of the Security Council plus the EU, and Iran being the six signatories. And it was called the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, signed in July 2015. So what it meant was that Iran had to make a number of concessions to ensure that it evaded the sanctions of the Western world, and it could unfreeze its economy and move ahead. So, including that, it had to ship the uranium which it had enriched to 20% through Turkey and Russia back, so that in Iran there were no more highly enriched uranium which were kept. And to just elaborate on what does it mean. Uranium is a key component for a weapon grade ammunition, and U-235 is the isotope which is required. So when the enrichment of uranium is carried out, till about 3.6 to 3.8% enrichment of the U-235 remains in the level of low enriched uranium, wherein it can be used basically for peaceful purposes like medicinal uses, etc. But more and more enrichment, moment it crosses 20% and above, then the threat of it being used more towards weaponization becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
So that
Reactor grade uranium is normally 10 to 12%.
yes,
And then if you go into 20 plus 20, after 20, it's a geometric progression of
absolutely.
right.
So
And then that's the next stage is weaponization only.
yes, sir. So the nuclear deal was signed, and in January 2016, when the nuclear deal became operational, because the deal said that Iran requires some time to cut down its centrifuges, which are running to produce 20% enrichment, ship out the 20%, so etc. All those steps were taken. And in January 2016, when IAEA did its inspection, Iran was fully compliant with everything that was supposed to be done. And the nuclear deal came into effect, and all the required sanctions, etc., were eased. All went well for a few years till Trump came into power as president, and he, from day one, was very dismissive about this particular nuclear deal. And in May 2018, he on his own extricated US out of that nuclear deal, calling it the worst deal ever. And thereafter, the US they tried to put what they called maximum pressure on Iran, so that it succumbs to the pressure with huge economic sanctions and threatening Iran with dire consequences, etc. This was a unilateral action by US, because not even the EU or France or UK, any of the signatories of the nuclear deal were in sync with US, and they did not withdraw from the nuclear deal. So this is how it went about, and it was only after Biden came to power that the talks on revival of the nuclear deal could
Deal, yeah.
raise comments. Yes.
Yeah, no, but in any case, it's in a limbo with this election. I don't think it will make any headway. And sanctions are still in place, and the sanctions have really crippled Iran's economy.
Yes.
And if I may add, the sanctions also wrecked our relations with Iran, because we were taking a lot of oil from them before the sanctions came into play. And then we've
Absolutely.
had to. Yeah, also, that's something we'll talk of India-Iran relations a little later, because it plugs it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So we've spoken of the Saudi-Iran deal. We've spoken, which has been brokered by China, right? And they said, okay, let's come to peace, because it's in China's interest to have good relations with both countries, and that both countries have good relations with each other.
Absolutely.
Okay. In any case, the underlying thing is that this deal was already in the offing in some manner. Only thing that USA couldn't progress it, because it was, it was completely against Iran, and it needed someone like China to step in and resolve the process. There was some kind of fatigue also setting in between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That's the sense I had got. Anyway, let's talk about Iran. Iran is a funny country. It doesn't have a sizable air force. Its air force, as we were discussing just before, is an old air force with hardly any airplanes. Now they're trying to get some through China, right? And they rely on two major issues. One is their missile power, combined with drones, of course, and the second is their militias. So, I would like you to explain to everyone's benefit how Iran has expanded its influence in the region through these two factors.
So, like you said, sir, the missile program is one of the most developed and advanced program in the entire region, and the range of missiles which Iran has developed over the past decade, they cover the entire region right up to the Strait of Gibraltar and the entire Arabian
Yeah,
Peninsula.
so we'll just show the map. एक map दिखा देंगे. Yeah, so अभी बताओ.
Yeah,
So
so
we've
if you see in this map, they have four choke points. The To the westmost is the Strait of Gibraltar, which is north of Morocco and Spain. Then you have the Egyptian choke point, the Suez Canal, and leading on to the Red Sea towards the south is the Bab el Mandeb, which is the Gulf of Aden near Yemen and Djibouti. And then you have the Persian Gulf and the easternmost, red circle, which is the Strait of Hormuz. So Iranian missiles of various categories are able to cover all the areas right up to the Strait of Gibraltar in the west, and going southwards and northwards and eastwards in a circular manner. So this is the range which Iran has in terms of its missile power. And if we recall, one of the parameters which was being discussed in the nuclear deal, even when Obama, signed this nuclear deal, was that the Western powers thought they need to curb this missile technology and ballistic missile prowess of the Iran, along with its nuclear program. So this program is one of the most potent outreaches, military and political outreach that Iran has got in the region. The second
Yeah,
is
what? Yeah, we'll come to the militias. I want to make a point here. एक चीज मैं बताना चाहता हूँ कि देखिए, ईरान के पास लंबे रेंज का मिसाइल्स हैं ऑलरेडी, राइट? और न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी पूरा है उसके पास। इसमें दो राय नहीं होना चाहिए हमारे पास कि वो अपने आप इट कैनॉट, what shall I say, develop its own nuclear program. It has all the wherewithal to do it. It is only not being allowed to do it. In fact, it is just, if I say, it is one screwdriver away, turn away from having a nuclear weapon systems. And right, so this is where Iran is. That what Colonel Agrawal showed about the reach up to Gibraltar. If दोबारा मैं मैप दिखाता हूँ, मैं आपको सबको बताना चाहता हूँ, अगर जिब्राल्टर, सुएज, हॉर्मुज, स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज और बाबल मंडप को बंद कर दिया, तो मान लो इस इलाके का पूरा जो यूरोप और नॉर्थ अफ्रीका और पूरा गल्फ कंट्रीज का पूरा क्या है, इकोनॉमी जो है टफ हो जाएंगे, या उसके ऊपर इट विल बी अ वेरी एडवर्स सिचुएशन. सो एंड ईरान इज अ कंट्री, अभी तक हमने जो देखा है, अभी नहीं, पिछले 5-10 साल से जो हम देख रहे हैं, 5-10 साल नहीं, इससे पहले भी देख लो, इज अ वेरी डिटरमिन्ड कंट्री, जो वो अपना पावर प्रोजेक्ट करना जानता है. पावर प्रोजेक्शन सिर्फ कैरियर बेस्ड एयरक्राफ्ट से नहीं होता, सिर्फ एयरक्राफ्ट से नहीं होता, ये तो मिसाइल पावर और मिलिशियास के साथ होता है. तो अभी थोड़ा मिलिशियास के साथ हम के बारे में बात करेंगे. ये है मिलिशिया मैप, इसको जरा समझाइए.
So, apart from missile, the other power projection tool that Iran has, is the various militias which it supports both ideologically, financially, as well as in some or most of the cases through supply of weapon systems and equipment. So, for example, in Syria and Lebanon, you have the Hezbollah, which operate and who are ideologically aligned with Iran. You have the Houthis in Yemen, who come from a very old Shia sect, and they are supported and ideologically aligned with Iran. And you have various other militias who are operating in and around the other countries who Iran supports. And in fact, the two important militia groups which are right now fighting Israel is the Hamas and the PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Both have direct and indirect support originating from Iran.
ईरान. नॉट ओनली दैट, अगर आप देखेंगे तो हिजबुल्लाह के अलावा इराक में भी इनके मिलिशियाज हैं, सीरिया में भी इनके मिलिशियाज हैं, और जो आज के दिन यूएस के ऊपर अटैक कर रहे हैं. इनफैक्ट यूएस हैज वॉर्डेड ऑफ अबाउट 15 to 20, nearly 30 अटैक्स ऑन इटसेल्फ, एंड इट हैज आल्सो गॉन ऑन द ऑफेंसिव 2-3 days बैक, जहां इन्होंने 3-4 मिसाइल, ये जो मिलिटेंट बेसिस, मिलिशिया बेसिस को अटैक किया है, राइट? और इसमें खास बात यह है, ये जो मैं आई जस्ट वांट टू एम्पलीफाई व्हाट कर्नल राजीव अग्रवाल हैज सेड, दिस हौतीस जो नीचे यमन की में ये जो ब्लू एरिया है, वो हौती कंट्रोल्ड एरिया है. वो बिल्कुल रेड सी में, रेड सी का और बाबल मंडप को पूरा 100% कवर कर देता है, और ईरान तो खुद स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज को कवर करता है. अगर आपको याद है सबको, 2018 में अरामको ऑयल इंडस्ट्री, ऑयल डिस्टिलरीज के ऊपर, रिफाइनरीज के ऊपर, 2 रिफाइनरी, एक अबुकेक और दूसरा मेरे को याद नहीं आ रहा, उसके ऊपर मल्टीपल ड्रोन अटैक हुआ था, और वो दोनों रिफाइनरी तकरीबन 1-2 महीने के लिए वो खत्म हो गए थे, और सऊदी अरेबिया को काफी नुकसान उठाना पड़ा. ठीक, तो ये माना जाता है, एक थियरी ये है कि ये अटैक्स जो हैं वो ईरान से आए हैं. एक थियरी ये है कि ये हौतीस ने मारा है. किसी तरीके से देखिए, इनका मार का इलाका तकरीबन 1800 किलोमीटर के दूर था, और वो बिल्कुल पिन पॉइंट मारा है. एंड दैट वाज अ डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन ऑफ ईरान्स एबिलिटी टू रीच आउट and project power, not only project power, also use its power against Saudi Arabia. ओके, दूसरा किस्सा मैं बताना चाहता हूं, वो था जब कासिम सुलेमानी, जो इनका कमांडर था कुद्स फोर्स का, राइट, कुद्स फोर्स, राइट, इट इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन, कुद्स फोर्स माना जाता है कि इट इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ अ मिलिशिया एंड सीआईए, यू नो, इंटेलिजेंस फोर्स। ये अमेरिकन बोलते हैं, ठीक है। और अमेरिकन काफी परेशान थे कुद्स फोर्स के से इराक में, खास करके इसीलिए सोलेमानी को मार दिया, जो उनका हेड था। ओके, उसके बाद अगर आपको याद है तो तकरीबन वो एक काफी मिसाइल एक्सचेंज वगैरह हुआ था। इनफैक्ट ईरान फायर्ड सम मिसाइल्स जो लेफ्ट राइट चले गए थे, और मेरे ख्याल में they did it purposefully, so they didn't want to, you know, heighten the tensions or escalate the conflict, but they had the capability to face up to USA। तीसरा किस्सा अगर आपको याद है, इसराइल ने 2-3 साल पहले एक न्यूक्लियर साइंटिस्ट जो मेजर जनरल है ईरान आर्मी में, उनको असैसिनेट किया विद यूज ऑफ जंपिंग माइन्स एंड एआई एंड ऑल दैट। एक, you know, in a secluded place, when a person was going in a car, he was shot down. So you will see that Iran has, gone through a lot of things, but it has always come back hitting, whether it is against whether it's against Israel or against USA or against Saudi Arabia। तो वो मार खाता है और मार दे भी देता है, और ये डिटरमिन्ड कंट्री है, जो एक बार टान लिया तो छोड़ता नहीं है, right? And it is vying for the whole Gulf region। Anything else you want to say about these aspects, Rajiv?
Yes, you're right, sir. I mean, Iran has been, you can qualify Iran by saying it's a very resilient power, and it is able to rally up the nation whenever such adversity is thrown at it, which proves counterproductive to the Western agenda. That when they think that these kind of actions are able to break Iran, it runs counterproductive. Each of such actions is able to rally up the Iranian nation as one. And that is how they have been able to sustain 30, 40 years of severe economic sanction and still keep their head up and keep progressing.
Yeah.
As far as Qasem Soleimani is concerned, just to put the chronology for the viewers in perspective, like you said, in September and October 2018, Saudi Arabia oil fields were targeted by missiles and drones from the Houthis. There was an attack in 2020 January, I think, on one of the airfields or oil fields of UAE also, when it caused alarm because that was the first time UAE was under attack. And in June 2019, one of the US drones which was flying over Iran, it was shot down by Iran, which almost led to a military conflict in the Persian Gulf. And just before that, in the month of May, there were some tankers which were targeted by missiles, which were the origin of which could not be established, although Western world in its normal narrative said that Iran was to be blamed. So when the US drone was shot down on 20th of June, it almost brought the Gulf region to the brink of a military conflict. Yeah, and the reports say that the president had ordered a military strike on Iran and just pulled off, minutes or hours before it was to be executed. Otherwise, the scene could have been very different from what we see now. Coming to Soleimani, just as a matter of interest, you said that he was you said that he was the head of the Quds force in Iran, and a very prominent head of the IRGC. And in terms of power, he people say was number 2 after the supreme leader in Iran. And he was also called the protector of Iran, colloquially and popularly by the Iranian people, because of the work that he had done as a young captain and major during the Iran-Iraq war in 1980 to 88.
Yeah. So we have a very clear picture, जो ईरान का power, how they do, what they do, and all that. नाउ लेट अस फोकस कि ईरान का रोल ये ईरान और सॉरी इजराइल और हमास के लड़ाई के बीच में क्या है? हाउ व्हाट इज द रोल यू सी ईरान हैज प्लेड? इट हैज प्लेड अ रोल, इसमें दो राय नहीं है, आप बताइए।
So I think
बिफोर दैट एक चीज मैं बताना चाहता हूँ, मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ कि राजीव ग्रिप ओवर डिटेल इज फैंटास्टिक। और क्योंकि ये जो भी मैं बोल रहा हूँ उसका पूरा हिस्ट्री और सब कुछ डेट्स इज कमिंग आउट। आई एम वेरी इम्प्रेस राजीव, कंग्रेचुलेशंस। एंड मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ यू नो क्वालिटी यू विल गेट ऑन गनर शॉट। इसीलिए मैं सबको बताता हूँ बार बार, सब्सक्राइब टू गनर शॉट। आपको जो क्वालिटी आपको गनर शॉट में मिलेगा अबाउट geopolitical events and analysis, और कहीं नहीं मिलेगा। And it is people like Rajiv who make it happen. And I'm proud to say that Rajiv was my student, right? Yeah, carry on, Rajiv.
So, coming to Iran's involvement in this current war, there is no doubt that Iran has put in its bit in whatever manner, and perhaps this gives the title for today's show, which you have so correctly put, the Iran, the shadowy power. So, it is nowhere in the forefront, but it is doing what it knows best by remaining in the background. But what I would like to say, sir, before we come to this Hamas-Israel war, what has happened to Iran in 2023 is also very important for people to know.
Yeah, bolo, bolo, bolo.
In a way, Iran has had the best year as far as 2023 could be. The oil exports have risen. I just had the figures. In 2022, Iran had exported 42.6 billion barrels of oil worth $42.6 billion, which was a huge up from the sanctions times of 2018-19, and today it is producing or exporting 2.2 million barrels per day, which is just short of its peak of 2.8 million barrels per day, which it used to produce. Coming to this year, the first and most major good news was the Saudi-Iran peace deal, which was brokered by China, and it sort of diffused the entire tension in West Asia region, and set hope that if Iran and Saudi Arabia have already reconciled, and the region was as it is coming together, there could be movement forward towards peace and prosperity. In April thereafter, we saw that Syria was readmitted into the Arab League. Syria is a major, friend and benefactor of Iran's
Iran.
numbers, and it is one of the countries, which Iran has so beautifully used to extend its influence
Reach
right up to
and
the
protect power.
Levant,
Yeah.
using Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And thereafter, this was it. The Arab League thing happened. Thereafter, a wave of reconciliation happened where Iran and Saudi Arabia leaders met, Iran and Egypt leaders met, Turkish and Iranian leaders met. So this kind of a reconciliation went on. Uh, Qatar has emerged in last about 4 to 5 years as a major, partner and friend of Iran, especially after the GCC Qatar diplomatic standoff in 2017, when Iran was among the only countries which helped Qatar stay afloat when the entire GCC had diplomatically cut off Iran. And then the two important summits that took place, the BRICS summit as well as the SCO summit, which took place this year. In both these summits, Iran was made the permanent member, giving a lot of fillip as far as the Iran's influence in the region is concerned. And then we had the September, news where US and Iran traded prisoners, and US unblocked $6 billion of Iran's frozen funds in the US banks. There was another development which took place, which not many people took note of, was a Defense Department report in October, just before the Hamas attack took off, wherein they said that there is no immediate threat of Iran being a nuclear weapon state, and it is not pursuing this program as such, and it will take time for it to ramp up its capabilities as and when it happens. And then obviously the Hamas attack came on 7th October. And if we see the scale of attack which Hamas undertook, using paragliders, using missiles and rockets to take out their communication towers, which are so precision-led attacks, and attacks across 14, 15 locations, Hamas does not have the capability to carry out such kind of intricate planning and such kind of intricate attacks. So there has to be some foreign hand behind it. And analysts would say that Iran has to be one of them.
नहीं
So
नहीं,
as,
इसमें दो राय नहीं है, दो राय नहीं, मेरे को तो डाउट ही नहीं है, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से यू सी द हमास अटैक्स एंड यू सी दैट अरामको ऑयल अटैक, if you analyze the Aramco oil refinery attack, there were, I think, if I remember, there were 18 drones and 3 cruise missiles, or a total of 15 drones and 3 cruise missiles, which did a coordinated attack. It was not a swarm attack. Many people thought it was a swarm attack. It was not. It was just a coordinated attack, right? I mean, if I reconstructed that attack back, and it's there in my, Ghana shot in my website. I wrote an article. उन दोनों में YouTube वगैरह नहीं था मेरे पास. It could have been originated in Iran. It could have been originated in Yemen through Houthis, or both. It could have been done both ways. So they have trained Houthis with sophisticated stuff to do all this. But then there's a question mark there. I'll tell you why the question mark. Because all the attacks which now Houthis are doing, not a single proper hit they've had. They've not had precision attacks on ships. But whereas in that case, they could hit an oil refinery very accurately. That kind of an accuracy could have been done only by Iran, no one else.
Absolutely.
Same thing with this Hamas. If you analyze the Hamas attacks the way they did, of course they used paragliders and all that, and they used a lot of deception also. So that kind of sophistication could have come only from Iran. There's no one else in this area who could give you that kind of sophistication. I mean, in fact, I'll put 2 powers in this area who could do this. One is Iran and the other is Turkey. Okay. Turkey won't do because its NATO membership is at stake. Okay. EU membership is at stake. So, I mean, it has got a lot at stake, so it won't get involved with this kind of a fighting. But Iran would.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, this is my view. If you have anything to say on this, you could add on, or you could put across your point of view also.
No, I agree with you, sir, that the kind of sophistication and precision with which the attacks were carried out, that within a space of few hours before Israel could wake up and react, the damage was already done. It could have been done only through very precise training, orchestration, planning, and there is no other nation which has the capability or the intent other than Iran.
Yeah, right. So bolo.
And
what else?
The most beautiful thing about whatever Iran does, whether it was the attack by the Houthis across the Aramco fields, whether it was the Persian Gulf crisis in 2019, whether it is now the attack which was carried out by Hamas, or the continuing thing, is the aspect of deniability that Iran has always been able to maintain, and the lack of corroborative evidence that the West has been able to put out to pin down Iran in any one of these kind of attacks and incidents.
Yeah, that's why I call it a shadowy power, because it remains in the shadows and ensures that others carry out the action. Right. So let's come to this Iran, hand, or rather its role, whatever you want to put it, in the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Yeah. So after this attack, and when the initial outrage was still on, and the world was coming to grips with it, one of the statements which some people would have noticed was from the Iranian authorities, where once the Hamas leader was meeting, I think, with President Riasi, he gave out a very public statement that you did not ask us when and how to carry out this attack, and at what scale, and therefore don't expect any direct support from us. So that statement was put out in a very deliberate manner to again maintain the deniability, and the lack of corroborative evidence, helped Iran in all its manner. And
Yeah,
now also the way it is continuing, the shutting down of the bubble mandab. You said that they are not using precision weapons to shut down the bubble mandab. They don't require precision weapons right now in bubble mandab, because the commercial ships are very slow moving and huge targets, and any kind of a rocket, missile, or drone that they have is good enough to put a hole in the ship and damage it. And that
yeah,
is one of the reasons why, despite US launching a very well publicized military campaign, Operation Guardian, something which they have launched, uh,
Prosperity Guardian,
Prosperity Guardian,
Prosperity Guardian.
there's hardly any Western or Arab nation which has joined them. There were 20 to start with. Now I think they're left with just two of them. And the most interesting thing is that even the US Navy, they have said that they do not have so many boats and so many destroyers and naval ships to carry out effective operations in Bab Mandab, despite that aircraft carrier being there. So I mean, just see the amount of capability and the threat that a small force or a small militia can generate across the world.
Yeah, I just want to highlight something. Iran, we know, is all over the Israel-Hamas war against, of course, Israel. But it has not escalated beyond a point. It has not allowed Hamas also to escalate this war beyond a point. Hezbollah fire कर रहा है against Israel, but very controlled manner. Hezbollah has not opened up, but it has kept Israel busy. Similarly, Houthis have also fired on Israel, but not, only limited. So the whole thing is, you see, it has, ensured that a lot of people have gone against Israel, and it has provoked Israel into acting the way it did. And you have also written an article today that Israel cannot get away by killing so many, innocent people and all that. So now it has made Israel into a raging bull without sense. And now it seems that, Israel is on the verge of losing this whole story, its whole plot. But that be that as it may, that's one part of the story. The two things which I want to highlight. If you look at this, you see this map. Of course, Red Sea is an entry to the Suez Canal. We know 12% of global trade. We know one-third of container traffic, 19,000 ships across Suez Canal. All that fine. अभी देखिए, Iran, by instigating Houthis to close Bab al Mandab or put post threat in Bab al Mandab, has actually closed Suez Canal also. In closing Suez Canal, it has actually affected whom? Egypt. Who else are affected by this whole story? Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, okay, Saudi Arabia, and their ships, Red Sea. Because इनका ट्रेड जो है ना वहाँ खत्म हो गया. ऊपर in the Strait of Hormuz, the other Gulf countries are also affected because Iran is sitting over it, and USA is under threat. So it has moved its aircraft carrier out of its base at Qatar, and it is now in somewhere where this Arabian Sea is,
Yes.
south of Oman. Okay, so it has posed a threat to US. It has also posed a threat to the complete Arabian countries. All the Arab nations and the Gulf countries are all under threat of Iran. And it is not doing it on its own. It is doing it through all these militias. As a result, today it is able to control the entire Muslim world. Your views?
Yes, you're right, sir. And the Israeli defense minister gave a statement 2 days back saying that we are fighting a war on 7 fronts. And, we are able to only strike back on 6, because the seventh front, which is the Bab Mandab, is beyond the striking range of the Israeli military forces right now. And why
Yeah.
Bab Mandab is a front? Because all these ships that are either Israeli flagged or are carrying Israeli, cargo, are being stopped and asked to turn back, or are being targeted by the Houthis. So most of
Yeah.
the shipping companies or the insurance companies all have declined to carry Israeli cargo or ships across Suez Canal, and then now they have to go across South Africa, Cape of Good Hope, and then come up, which hugely increases the cost. So what all this has done, the fighting across the other six fronts, whether it is the West Bank or Syria or Lebanon or the Gaza Strip, what it has done is that the cost that it is exacting out of Israel is huge in terms of both military as well as economic cost. Whereas the powers to be, that is Iran, they are sitting back with the lowest cost option of inflicting such damage or cost on Israel, and that too without committing any of its active military troops or getting engaged in any active military conflict. So, I mean, this is the curious example of how a nation can hurt another without getting without firing even a single bullet.
I think it's a superb strategy. I mean, you might like or not like Iran. That's a different story. But its strategy in this entire Israel-Hamas war and beyond, because Iran is you know acting at two, three different layers. The first layer is it is acting against USA direct. It is acting against all the Gulf countries, third. And it is acting against even countries like Egypt and all to control power over them. And now it is now almost emerging as one of the undisputed, powers in this area. And the next thing which I feel is it really doesn't respect this deal with Saudi Arabia. It'll give Saudi Arabia some quarter, but it'll want to control this entire Muslim world. And that is its aim. And the next aim is it'll force USA to recommence the nuclear deal so that it can get nuclear, capability. Right? That's my take. Your views?
Sir, Iran, I don't think is too worried about the nuclear deal as such. For Iran, nuclear deal has now become more of a bargaining chip than anything else. But for the
Yeah, I
Western
agree
world,
with you.
the nuclear deal is a big deal. Why I say so
Big
is
deal.
because economically Iran is in good space. It may not be in the best, but good space. It is generating good revenue. Direct oil is sales are what we know, but we also know that Iran sells oil indirectly through Iraq and Syria to a good part of the world. Iran has emerged as a major military weapon equipment supplier during the Russia-Ukraine war, which is also ramping up its revenues. It is now enriching uranium at 60% purity, which is technically almost half a step less than what it requires for a weapon grade ammunition,
Yeah,
ammunition for a nuclear weapon.
yeah, that's 90%. 90% and above, just for
It,
everyone's information, 90% and above is weapon grade uranium.
weapon grade, and which is only a the crucial step is what you said earlier, from low grade uranium to high grade uranium, that is 3.5 to 20%, and after that it just moves fast in geometric progression. So Iran is merely enriching uranium at its own will. Its economy is back on track. It is selling oil. It is doing peace deals with the region. It has done a 25-year strategic partnership with China. It is going strong with Russia, and its ties have got revitalized, especially after its role in the Russia-Ukraine war. So, for Iran, signing or not signing a nuclear deal is no longer a very big issue. Yes, it is there for the Western world because they want Iran's nuclear program to be curbed.
Yeah, fine. So we've discussed all this. Now as a final to this wonderful discussion, let's talk a little bit about India-Iran equations, especially in view of the fact that one of that Chem Pluto was hit by a drone just outside our EEZ. And definitely that thing couldn't have come from Houthis and all, because Houthis have no axe to grind with us. It could have been either Pakistan instigated or Iran, giving us a warning shot. Your views?
Sir, I don't have too many details on it, but whatever I have read and what I know, I don't think Iran has got anything to do as far as firing a warning shot to India is concerned, because India is not a threat to Iran in any manner. So I don't think Iran needs to fire a warning shot at India. India is very favorably aligned as far as Iran is concerned. We are trying to do whatever the best within the gambit of the sanctions with Iran. The Chabahar port is also progressing well. The foreign minister was there. A prime minister has met with President Riasi twice. The fact that Iran became a permanent member in BRICS as well as SCO could not have
Yeah,
come
yeah.
about.
We
India
we
was.
we allowed them to have it. Yeah.
Yes, so yeah, I don't think India is a threat to Iran, and Iran would do anything to do with the parting warning shot there. It has to be something else or a mistake which is not going to be repeated.
Yeah, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it could also be Pakistan, so we don't know. So we'll leave it at that. But what you have said is important, that India-Iran equations are still good. After all, it was without India's help, it couldn't have been part of SCO or BRICS. We are also in with them for the Chabahar port. We are also in with them for the North-South transit corridor. And we also are in with them for managing Afghanistan. After all, Afghanistan is a common problem. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so we are okay. We our neutrality or multipolarity will pay us good dividends, and of course, as you said, Iran is now part of that, you know, axis of resistance or whatever you call it. Again, with China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, and North Korea. This is what people are talking of. So, and it doesn't have any problem with us. We are okay. And we have probably, Iran would have been discussed by our external affairs minister when he went to Russia recently, yesterday or day before it was.
Yes.
Okay. So, this is where it is. So, what comes across very clearly, Iran is a shadowy power of consequence. It's no more that वो पराया state है, वो बैठा रहेगा एक कोने में. It is now actually, despite being in the shadows of this whole game, it is actually running the whole game, right? With this, I think, shall we take some questions?